What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with another video. The NFL draft is quite literally right around the corner, and I hadn't done too many mock drafts up until the last couple days, and I've been hammering them out. And in today's video, I'm going to be providing to you what I think is a good cross-section between what I would like the Bills to do and what I realistically think is going to happen. For some reason, I feel like I had a lot easier of a time figuring this out in last year's draft, whereas this year, it's been a lot more difficult. I'm not quite sure why. Before we get into my mock, I, of course, got to give a shout out to my partner, Thrive Fantasy. If you're interested in sports betting, specifically on player props, be sure to check out Thrive. Thrive, you can bet on the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, golf, the MMA. Best part is, if you sign up using my code CAVE with the link in the description below, you will get a 100% deposit match on your initial deposit. So 20 becomes $40, 40 becomes 80. 99.9% of the time, they're doing some sort of promotion for new users. So if you sign up using that link, you'll probably get some sort of leg that's like over half a point for LeBron James, something completely free. If you guys are interested, one more time, use the link down in the description, use code CAVE. It would help me out greatly, and I would appreciate it. But let's get into the mock draft. Couple disclaimers. One being, I will do an actual mock draft for the first round next week, right before the actual draft happens. My second disclaimer is that this has no trades in it. I was not racking my brain that hard. My final disclaimer is that this video will be broken down into each selection having different types of possibilities that I think could have happened there, and then the actual pick that I'm going to go with. Let's start right at the top with the Bills' first pick, coming in the first round, of course, 27th overall. Unlike last year, where the cards were on the table, we knew we were going with the cornerback. It was just a matter of who. This year, we really don't have a godforsaken idea what Brandon Beane is thinking, and I'm not even sure if Brandon Beane knows what he's going to do yet. Due to the lack of players that have a first-round grade on them in this class, nobody is too sure how the board is going to pan out, so it's making it tough to predict who's going to be landing in the Bills' lap at 27. And now that we're no longer in best player available mode, even if Brandon Beane tells you we are most certainly not, we have different types of avenues we could take. Addressing the elephant in the room, the linebacker position, what are we going to do to replace Tremaine Edmunds? We re-signed A.J. Klein not too long ago. But is that going to actually be our remediation? And a lot of people are thinking we go with Jack Campbell out of Iowa. That's been an extremely popular name amongst Bills Mafia, but in my opinion, I just cannot see us taking Jack at 27. It's too high. I'm sorry, it is. And I understand that because of the lack of first-round grades on players, that taking Jack at 27 wouldn't be the craziest reach of all time, but I do see other value. Right off the bat, I'm taking linebacker off the table at 27, like it or not. The next position that a lot of people are talking about is, of course, wide receiver. I would be all over this, except I'm not too sure that we have a wide receiver fall in our lap that I think is worth taking here. Between picks 19 and 26, teams like the Giants, the Vikings, the Chargers, the Ravens, all of which are in the receiver market, are choosing before us. So I think we'd have to get extremely lucky to even have guys like Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers end up being available for us. After those two, I think the next best guy would probably be like Jalin Hyatt. I'm not in the Jalin Hyatt market, at least at 27. So wide receiver also off the table. One other possibility that I think is just as unlikely as Zay or Addison, and that is going to be offensive tackle Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. I think we'd have to be extremely lucky for him to fall here, but if he did, I'm all over that. So where am I going to divert my attention to? Well, the answer is simple, because we have a lot of needs, and that is going to be to the interior defensive line. If you weren't aware, the Bills don't have a single interior defensive lineman under contract after this season. This is definitely a deteriorating position on our football team that we need to address, and I think we need to address it in this class. An interior defensive line is not a spot that you're going to get a guy in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round and just strike gold. Typically, the top names are found in the 1st and 2nd round, so I think we're going to have to address it here. And with that being said, at 27, I do think the Buffalo Bills are going to be taking interior defensive lineman Calijah Kancey out of Pitt. I think we might have to get a little bit lucky for Calijah to end up at 27, but it's a lot more realistic in my opinion than other guys I've named. Calijah comes in at 6'1", 281 pounds, considered undersized for the position, but on the interior defensive line, that's not always the worst thing for leverage purposes. He's worked his way up the draft board and garnered a lot of attention because of his ability to penetrate in many different forms and fashions. He's got a high motor that he pairs with his flexibility that makes him extremely slippery to get hands on. And although he might lack that size, he might lack some length, he's not weak whatsoever, and he also makes up for it because he's extremely quick. Overall, Kancey is a versatile and dynamic playmaker that I think new play caller Sean McDermott could utilize to his advantage on the inside, and it would be great as a long-term move because, like I said, this position on our football team is going to need to be addressed eventually. I know it's not a fun pick, I know it's not an exciting offensive playmaker, but it feels so much like a Brandon Beane selection, and I feel like it fits way too well with what we're looking for at 27, and Calijah Kancey out of Pitt is my pick here. With that pick in mind, moving on to our second round selection, 59th overall. You're going to hear me say this throughout the entire video, but there's a ton of different avenues and possibilities with this pick as well. But I do think there are two positions here we will target, that being wide receiver and linebacker. Two wide receivers that I think could be on the Bills' radar would include Tennessee wide receiver Cedric Tillman and Houston wide receiver Nathaniel Tank Dell. But I do think it might be a little bit premature for those guys to be taken in this position, even if they wouldn't be there at our third round pick. Now, linebacker that I think will be a target if on the board is Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. I would be shocked if he was here, to be honest with you. Similar to some of the names I mentioned in the first round, if he is there, I'm all over it. If the board pans out the way I think it's going to, I think the Bills will end up targeting defense, specifically linebacker, like I mentioned. And at the 59th overall selection, I have the Buffalo Bills taking linebacker Daiyan Henley out of Washington State. But consider him a part of the top 4 linebackers in this draft class. Formerly a wide receiver, oddly enough, so he is a little bit undersized. But I'll tell you right now, this kid does not give a flying shit how big he is, how small he is in comparison to the guy he's about to go head up with, because he will fly in and he will not avoid contact whatsoever. He's just flat out explosive. He's athletic. He has range. And what makes him so attractive to me, and what I think will make him so attractive to Buffalo's front office, is just his overall versatility, of course. Oh, how much the Bills value that whole versatility thing, and that's Henley in a nutshell, man. He's physical. He'll get dirty at the line of scrimmage. He'll take on any contact he has to, but then he'll drop back in coverage and stay step for step with virtually anybody he has to. Kid 6'1", 225, ran a 4.5 40, which is pretty damn fast for a linebacker. I think he not only checks every box the Bills are looking for as a linebacker, but just as an overall football player and as a fit for this football team. And I'm looking at him to be the Bills selection at 59th overall. Moving on to our third round pick, 91st overall. Given how the draft has gone for the Bills so far, taking interior defensive line and taking a linebacker, I think we will flip over to the offensive side of the ball here. I think given how things have gone, we will be primarily targeting a wide receiver here. There's a range of guys that I could see the Bills going with, and it is possible that all of them are gone. That range including Houston receiver Tank Dell, once again, Ole Miss receiver Jonathan Mingo, SMU receiver Rashee Rice, as well as Sooners receiver Marvin Mims. The guy out of that bunch that I think will most realistically and most likely be there is wide receiver Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma. Marvin is 5'11", weighs 183 pounds, ran a 4.38 40. Obviously an archetype of receiver that would fit your primary slot role, which of course is something that we kind of have a little bit of a question mark with at the moment. And I don't expect, nor should you, for Marvin to be a guy that steps in and immediately takes over the slot role or immediately is a day one contributor. He's a guy that I think would be excellent depth, great competition for Deontay Hardy and Khalil Shakir. Marvin has what the Bills are looking for offensively in that run after catch ability. But he's also got the capability to get vertical down the field like Deontay Hardy. He's also consistent at the catch point. Like I was alluding to earlier, I think it will be a little bit of a process because he needs to refine his ability to gain separation. That's really going to be the challenge with him. But he's got the tool set that when it's polished around the edges, he could be a solid contributing starting wide receiver on an offense like the Buffalo Bills. I do think with the 91st overall selection, the Bills will be selecting wide receiver Marvin Mims. But I'm not done with our third round pick yet, because if you remember me saying I'm not exactly sure all of these guys are going to be available, that possibility is real. If that does end up happening, I want to explain what my backup plan would be, because I'd be excited to bring in this player as well. This guy is a defensive player that would make 3 straight defensive selections, which is kind of why I didn't have him being my primary pick, but I still think it would make sense. Anyways, this is going to be cornerback Corey Trice out of Purdue. This dude is a physical freak of nature for the position, which is exactly why I think he would make a ton of sense for the Buffalo Bills, because if you get a guy like this in the right hands, you could really turn him into an absolute monster, kind of like what's happening with Tariq Woolen right now. Tariq Woolen is 6'4", 209 pounds, whereas Corey Trice, he's 6'3", 206 pounds. Pretty much exactly what he's advertised as, just a physical freak that needs to be developed, that needs to be put in the right system to succeed. Whenever a guy, especially at corner, checks off all the physical boxes the way that Corey Trice does, I'm all over it. So in the case that all 4 of the receivers that I originally mentioned are no longer on the board, this is the guy I think the Bills will go and get. Moving on to our 4th round pick, 130th overall. The more exciting picks are over now, sorry. That doesn't mean there still isn't value to be had, and I'm going to kind of shorten things up here at the end of the video because we don't need to spend too long talking about day 3 picks. This pick, I am targeting an offensive player, specifically a tight end. I do think tight end will be on the Bills' radar, but not at the top of their priority list. Somebody that I saw mocked to the Bills in the 3rd round quite often was Luke Shoemaker out of Michigan. Really wasn't a fan of pulling the trigger in the 3rd round on Luke, and I know it's kind of going to be tough for him to fall all the way down to our 4th round pick. Could happen. We might get lucky, so I'm considering him a possibility here. More realistically, a guy that I think has a pretty solid chance of being on the board here than not is tight end Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion. Zach Kuntz, similar to Luke Schoonmaker as well as Darnell Washington, scored tremendously at the combine for the athletic scores. He excels as a receiver, a pass catcher, getting separation. That's what he's good at. We know the Bills aren't looking for guys to line up and block for Derrick Henry in I-form or anything. That does play to his benefit, but what kind of doesn't is the fact that he struggles as a run blocker, to be frank. Standing in at 6'7", 255 pounds, Zach Zach is another one of those guys that checks off all the boxes when it comes to the physical traits. Of course, at this price in the 4th round, we're not looking for a guy that's going to be a slam dunk. We just want upside, and that's exactly what Zach Kuntz brings. I have been hearing a lot of noise of the Bills wanting to address the tight end position. I do think it's a need, but I don't think we should be addressing it any earlier than this. If we did, I would be a tiny bit upset. But with that being said, in the 4th round, 130th overall, I will be having the Bills select Old Dominion tight end Zach Kuntz. Moving on to our 5th rounder, only 7 selections later, 137th overall. I'm going to kind of speed through this a little bit. You can see us going in many different directions here. Possibilities that I have listed include running back Sean Tucker out of Syracuse, as well as offensive tackle Warren McClendon out of Georgia. There was a guy that consistently stuck out to me at this value, and that's going to be edge rusher KJ Henry out of Clemson. We know how much the Bills value the rotation on the defensive line. Even though we thought we addressed the edge rusher position last offseason, it's still an area on our football team of concern, and the way that we like to move things around, it does make sense. We got to our 6th round pick, 205th overall. I saw a rumor that said the Bills were interested in safety Christian Young out of Arizona. I kind of just picked up and ran with this rumor, if I'm being honest with you. So with this selection, I do have them taking Christian Young. I will officially wrap up my Buffalo Bills mock draft for the 2023 NFL Draft. I'll throw up all the selections right next to my face on screen here. I've said this in the past, I am no draft expert. I used to never really pay attention to this time of year before I started making content. But then, of course, once I started posting videos, I had to pay attention. So here I am. I really don't watch film. I just read a bunch of articles. I let the actual people that know what the hell is going on do all the research for me. Then I just kind of bury my face, read all the work they did, and then base my determinations based off of team needs, positional value, all of those cross sections. And there's no shame in that. To wrap it up, let me know all of your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, if you guys enjoyed, please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you want to hit the bell to be notified when I upload, I'd appreciate that. You want to go over to Twitter, follow me over there, I'd appreciate that as well. I have a TikTok down in the description that I think you should check out, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Talking about him, and you talking about him. But you know what you're not talking about? Him!